Let's talk critical minerals. Our guest says Canada has a once-in-a-generation opportunity right now to developing crucial supply chains, notably for the metals and materials needed for electric transportation. We're joined by David Anonychuck. He's Global VP of Metallurgy and Consulting at SGS. It's great to see you. Just remind us what SGS does very quickly, please.
So at SGS, we're a global leader in testing, inspection, and certification around the world, and we work on every major supply chain out there, including minerals and batteries as well. And
you yourself are trained in metallurgy, so you're the ideal guest for this.
Correct.
You say that in North America, we'd start with North America if we could. You say last year there was just this build it, we can do it mentality as projects started moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, all the conferences we attended in industry, and especially in North America, we saw the build it mentality. Right, we saw GM, BASF coming to these battery conferences, engaging the mining community because they're talking about all their plans in terms of what they want to do in North America, but especially in Canada because it's a first mover.
Canada is seen as having got ahead. I mean, the Americans are spending trillions, but Canada is seen as an early mover in this space.
Definitely, because we know Canada's at the beginning of that supply chain. Right. If you think about all the announcements that we're seeing in Canada, we had Ontario and Quebec with a rash of announcements. Look at Volkswagen's $7 billion investment in St. Thomas in terms of a battery plant that they want to build. Umicore with a battery materials plant, which means they want to bring on things like lithium, nickel, and other commodities that go into these batteries. But it's the same thing for Quebec. Look at Bécancour. What the government's done with the industrial park. We have GM, we have Ford, and we have mining companies like Nemaska Lithium who are actually in construction right now. So it's happening in Canada. It's a first mover, and of course we have one of the largest, world's market at our doorstep, the U.S.
The thing with, a bit like with rare earths, with lithium, it's a lot of the values in the processing, isn't it?
Well, there's value to be held across the entire value chain for the miners, for the people who are going to be processing. And what's different about batteries, different than traditional commodities like gold and even your base metals, those are metals, right? They're going into manufacturing. When it comes to batteries, these are highly refined chemicals, right? So that means we need a different subset of processing to come to North America in order to make this supply chain run together, because we know that mining, chemical, and automotive are now forever connected just because of the demand out there.
Just to give a cynical view, maybe a skeptical view, the Chinese have got, what, a lead of a decade here. Can we really catch up without massive subsidies, and even then?
Well, if you think about why is Canada viewed as an important part of that supply chain, Bloomberg, for the fourth year now, they've done their global lithium-ion battery supply chain ranking. And guess who came on top? This came out only a few weeks ago. Canada beat China for the first time in the ranking, and that's what made it exciting. And so the question is, why is this happening? The reason is because if we look across the entire supply chain, Canada has the raw materials as the first mover, again, with US at our doorstep, and also EU also knocking for partnerships and alliances. But it's our high ESG standards that's part of that ranking. If you're an OEM and you want to invest, you're going to care about how those units are processed. So having that, like I said, that high ESG ranking and the industry that we see in Canada, we're a first mover, like I said, right at US doorstep. So all those things elevate Canada to that #1 ranking for the first time in the 4 years of the survey that Bloomberg's come out with.
It's interesting. I mean, Indonesia has swamped the global nickel market, but we know there's appalling worker standards and environmental standards not so good with Indonesian nickel production. So presumably Canada has an advantage there.
A huge advantage, and that's what it's telegraphing with its policy. Why did companies invest in Canada in the first place? They had to make a decision, right? And I can tell you that the support from both federal and provincial governments have made a huge difference in telegraphing those standards, those policies, because if you're an automotive company, you care where those units come from. Whenever they're looking at investing in the mining sector, for example, and the due diligence reviews that I've participated in, they put an equal weighting on sustainability and ESG just beside the technical due diligence. So it's important.
And even apart from environmental or worker security standards, there's just a strategic risk of depending on China for anything these days.
Well, I mean, right now, if you think about Canada and its positioning going forward, and and people don't want to take that risk if you're thinking about that long-term investment. And we know in terms of gigafactories, in terms of the future, we know that North America and Europe are going to be competing for the non-sort of, Asia-China portion. That's 30% of that future battery market up for stake. And those companies, again, they want those like those high ESG standards that they're going to be investing in.
Do we have enough skilled workers, though, in this country?
That is a challenge for Canada. Natural Resources Canada came out with some statistics. They looked at lithium, graphite, and nickel in the last 15 years. We've only brought 3 or 4 mines in that area to production. Yeah. But if you go for the next 15 years forward, we actually have 22 mines that we're going to need to bring into production. So biggest issue is that skilled workforce. And that means technical people, that means people during, in construction phases, but that also means the trades. We're going to need electricians, we're going to need millwrights to do all that. And that's going to be a huge challenge for Canada ahead. So we need to develop that workforce.
And chemists, you name it.
On the technical side, metallurgists, chemical engineers, environmental scientists, again, going back to those high ESG standards, there's a lot of opportunity, but we have to develop that talent to be able to meet those challenges.
David, thanks very much.
Great.
David Anonychuck is Global VP of Metallurgy and Consulting at SGS.